Hello, this is James from Film Snob Reviews. I have the pleasure of sitting down with the lead actress from the incredible independent drama The Swerve, Mrs. Azura Sky. Am I pronouncing your name right? Hopefully.
So close. It's Azura.
Azura. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Azura. All right. I'll
I
have that
appreciate
in
you
mind.
asking.
Azura, how long have you been acting? Have you been, uh,
I started doing theater when I was a really tiny kid, doing plays. I grew up without a TV in my house, so I was kind of oblivious to that medium of the industry, which was a pretty great way to grow up, actually. Um, but I got my Screen Actors Guild card shortly after my 15th birthday. It was my
wow.
first job. It was a movie I did for Showtime called Alone. So yeah, almost 25 years ago. So I've been acting in film and television for almost 25 years, quarter
Wow.
century.
Wow. That's insane.
It is
25 years is
insane.
quite
It's
the
wild to even articulate that number.
yeah, it's quite the impressive time span. And have you dabbled into theater projects at any time in those 25 years? Have you mostly stuck to film and television?
I have stuck to film and television. Uh, with the exception of a play I did here in Los Angeles. It was several years ago. It wasn't even really a play. It was just sort of like an improv troupe that I was performing with a bit. But I would love to do theater more. LA doesn't have a great theater scene, although it's getting better, and I'd like to see it get better. But I think if you're going to do theater, you've got to go to New York or London. So
Right.
I'd love to get the chance to do that at some point. But unfortunately, right now, I don't think anyone's going to be doing any plays anytime soon.
Yeah, well, let's hope that gets better. But I'd like to ask you, how did you find out about this particular role for this film? What interested you about this role, or how did you come into contact with the director, or how did you find out about
So the filmmakers reached out to me. They knew who I was, and there was a bit of interest. Um,
it?
so it's not like they were offering it to me by any means, but
Right.
they were interested in, talking to me. And so they sent me the script, which I liked very much. Um, and it was a character that I just loved. I think as an actor, you wait a whole lifetime to be given a character like this. So I responded to the material, and then we set up a phone call, a FaceTime call, and we had a nice chat. And I felt like we were on the same page, and it went really well. And then I didn't hear anything from them for several weeks, maybe a month. And, we reached out, and they said, they were still thinking about it. And at
Oh,
that point,
that's
I offered to make an audition, to put myself on tape, just to, try to persuade them.
yeah.
So I did that. I put a little scene on tape and sent it to them, and then they thought about it some more, and it finally went my way.
Well, that's great. That sounded like a good process. I mean, yeah, quite the role. I mean, you could say it's the role you were meant to play in a way, right? It's a role that kind of like reached out to you and said like, hey, this is like my perfect opportunity to like really immerse yourself. Did you immerse yourself like a lot with your character in any way? Like, did you do any sort of like well, I don't want to say method acting, but any
I
sort of
did not
technique?
kill. I did not kill anyone in preparing for this film.
Okay.
If that's what you're
Yeah.
asking.
No, thankfully, no. But
I would say that the whole process was very immersive. Um, in a lot of ways, it was a role that I found was almost impossible to prepare for, especially those really emotional, demanding
right.
scenes. Like you can't really practice that,
No, it kind of
So I think
just
it's
comes
really
out.
just more about sort of being in a headspace where I was able to access that more than preparing necessarily.
Right. And was there anything that you felt like, oh, like this I can't do, and you like just had to like back away from it.
Well, it's funny because going into it, I was really nervous because I didn't know if I could do it. I hoped I
Right.
could, and I thought I could, but until we were actually there doing it on the day, I didn't know. And there were definitely a handful of these really challenging scenes that when they were over, it was really nice to check that box
Definitely.
and know
Yeah.
that we had done it and it had happened and we had got it. Yeah, no, you never really know until you're there doing it, how it's going to go. We just hope that you hope those angels show up and that it happens.
Yeah, those angels should show. And speaking of angels, I mean, you really had to face some demons in this one. You really had to. There were some intense scenes that were really gut wrenching, and I was really, really well. I was shocked first of all at like how good you played, like the character and how realistic it seemed. Is there any scene in particular that you felt like was a really brutal scene to do, but also fun to act out? If I'm making any sense here, like if
yeah,
there's
that makes perfect sense. I would say oftentimes those two things go hand in hand. I would say that those are probably the most enjoyable scenes, without giving away too much. And I'm sure this will sound really sick and twisted, but the scene where I find the boys in the living room at the end,
right,
as gut wrenching and as difficult as that was, absolutely thrilling. Tons of fun.
Yeah.
So, like as I said, as an actor, you live for that stuff, and how rare it is that you're actually given an opportunity to do something like that. So, yeah, the more gut wrenching, the better. It's funny with those scenes, doing them wasn't. I mean, they were challenging, but it's just acting. So, it's not real. But in watching those scenes, it's actually more difficult for me to watch them than it was for me to do them.
Oh yeah, I can understand that. Like, cause when you're in the moment, it's like, okay, I've done it, it's done and dusted, but it's also forever printed on film or on video that just can be viewed repeatedly. If there are people who watch films like this repeatedly, I have seen the film twice already, and it's really good. I saw it once a couple months back, and I saw it once last week. And yeah, I mean, there's hard parts to come in playing characters, and there's easy parts to come in playing characters. But did you ever feel like there was, I don't want to say a middle ground, but where you just felt kind of like, oh, okay, this is just an easy scene where I don't really have to do much, and I don't feel like I'm giving my all, like, or in terms of the character, or the script isn't giving me what I need to do.
I don't think there was any improv in this particular movie.
Okay.
I believe that just about every word was on the page, with maybe a little tweak here and there, but it was not, improvisation was not an element of this one. But there were, as you say, in contrast to those very emotional scenes, there's lots of just like those shoe leather scenes that are just sort of getting you from here to there. Holly walking down the stairs, Holly making breakfast. And you say, your question was, in those scenes, do you not give it your all? And I suppose you always give it your all, but it's a matter of, keeping it restrained and contained. And as an actor, something I always work with is, it's like doing less. Can you do less? The camera's so close to your face most of the time. It doesn't take much,
Right. Yeah, I mean, you could say less is more sometimes.
Absolutely. I would say most of the time. Sometimes more is more, just it just is. But I would say more often, less is more.
Well, yeah, that's great. And in terms of festivals and ceremonies and stuff like that, like, how has the film been doing? Like, if it's probably been well received in festivals from what I've seen.
It's done a few festivals, and it has been well received. I won a couple of Best Actors awards at a couple of them, which was exciting.
Yes.
So I think that our festival run has come to an end with the film opening. But yeah, it was brief, but lovely. Unfortunately, I didn't get to attend any of them in person. But
Right. Yeah.
when you
Of
do a
course.
little movie like this, you don't know if anyone's ever going to see it.
Right.
That just is the nature of independent films. And you do these things and you hope they find a home and an audience, but you just never know. So the fact that people are actually seeing this film is really exciting for me.
Well, that's great. That's just the enthusiasm that I admire so much in actors and actresses. And would you say that independent filmmaking? Well, have you worked on big budget productions before?
I've done more little ones, but I have done both.
Yeah. Is there a substantial difference between independent? Like, is independent more focused on I don't know, time restraints and smaller crews? Do you feel more comfortable with smaller crews instead of like this like studio lights and a whole bunch of people? Like this one's obviously you guys had a smaller crew, so it
Very.
was felt less pressure when you were doing the scenes. Is there like a substantial difference that you can note between big budgets and independent when you're performing?
On a bigger, like on this movie, we didn't even have trailers. It was
Right.
that bare bones.
Wow.
But so I would say some of there's better food and on bigger budget movies, and yes, there's a bigger crew. But I find that when you're actually doing the work, and once when the camera is rolling, it really doesn't matter how many people are in the room, or how many lights are there. It's always the same. I find that when you're actually working, all those people and all those elements really disappear. So when it comes down to actually doing the work, I don't really think there's much difference.
So, in terms of other projects coming up, do you have anything planned for now, or are you just smooth sailing for a little bit?
I'm just seeing what comes next. I have a couple writing things I've been working on, which has been nice over this year to keep me busy.
Oh, cool.
But our whole business really shut down, and it's starting to come back a bit. But I do not know what's next for me, so we shall see.
But you've delved into writing? You've
Yes.
Yeah. So is that
Yeah.
like a new thing that you're doing? Have you just started into it this year, or have you
Yeah,
been
it's
trying?
something I've been doing over probably the past 5 or 6 years. And it's just been such a gift. I love acting, and I hope I get to do it forever. But in terms of a creative process, I just find writing to be much more creative. When you're acting, you're really just there to utilize or to see someone else's vision come to be, and you're there to utilize that, which is an amazing thing to do. But when you're writing, that's you.
Yeah.
So good to have hobbies. There's a lot of downtime in this business, so good to find some other things to do.
Yeah, great to have hobbies. But yeah, you did a fantastic job in the film, and really, I have one more question for you. This is what I'm starting to do with most interviews. You can answer. I guess I could ask you both of them. First one being, who is your favorite actress or actor?
Oh gosh.
You don't have to. You don't have to like like if you have one that's like, okay, this one's just better than the other one, you can choose it. It doesn't have to be like the.
Well, I don't know that I could choose just one.
All right.
Because there are so many greats. But I will say, just the first one that popped into my head was the late great Harry Dean Stanton, who I got the honor of working with very briefly.
Oh, really?
And I will always be so grateful for that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, terrific actor, and
among so many other greats, but you're making me choose one. So
yeah. Well, if you got to choose one, it's that one. And what is your favorite film that you've seen in the past, let's say, decade? What is your?
Oh gosh, I wish you had asked me this question like an hour, like yesterday, so I could have thought about it a little bit. My favorite film in the last decade. Can I think about it a little bit and get back to you?
Yes,
Sorry,
you
I'm just
can.
totally blanking. That's such a
Of
big
course
question.
you can. Yeah, it's a huge question. There's a ton of really good movies.
Actually, you know what movie? I don't know that. I'm sure I'm blanking on so many great ones, but one that stands out just in the last bunch of years that I really loved was that. I love that Spike Jonze movie, Her, with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson.
Yes. Yeah,
I thought that was really
yeah,
super special. And
that's
I
a really
haven't thought about
special
it in a
one.
long time, and it just popped into my head. So those are my answers: Harry Dean Stanton and Her.
Her is just it's my favorite of the last 10 years. So
Oh, yay! I got the
yeah.
answer right.
Ding. Yeah, that film is phenomenal. I could talk about it for hours. But Azura, it was great sitting down with you. I think we might almost be out of time here, if I'm correct.
Okay.
Or yeah, that's a great film. And do you hope to work on a film of that skill someday?
Yes, I mean, I think that's the dream. You constantly want to work with, do the best material and writing that you can, and work with the best people that you can, and that's what we're all aspiring to.
And did you have a good repertoire with the director for The Swerve? Did you guys get along well?
Yeah, very much so. I think it would have been pretty disastrous had we not. You're working so closely with someone, and it's such an intimate experience. Obviously, I didn't know him before. It's just kind of a matter of showing up and just choosing to trust someone immediately and innately, for better or for worse. There really isn't an alternative. But yeah, we got along very well.
Right, because there is some actors that well, I would say maybe Brando. He didn't get along with most of his directors, and he gave incredible performances. So luckily, that wasn't the case here.
Yeah.
But yeah, Azura, thank you for sitting down with me and chatting a bit about the film.
Thank you, James.
Congratulations on everything, and best of luck to your future projects and all of that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, thanks for listening. You can check out this interview while you're checking it out right now. Go and check out The Swerve. Is it going to be out on VOD soon?
It's out on VOD already.
It's out on VOD already. Go check out The Swerve on VOD, and I will see you guys in the next one.